Hello friends, in this video we will see how to install XAMPP on a Windows computer where we already have MySQL Server installed. So kindly watch the video till the end and please also like and subscribe to this humble channel. So in this video we will see how to install XAMPP on Windows, change the Apache and MySQL ports, configuration of the XAMPP control panel with the right ports, enable MySQL as a service, and we will also fix how to let XAMPP use its own MySQL database instead of the database from MySQL Server 5.5. Let's first download the XAMPP installation package, and you should be able to get a link where you can download XAMPP for Windows or Linux or Mac. XAMPP is cross-platform, so just choose a version which is compatible with your operating system. So I already have the package downloaded, so we will install this. Okay, now just to show you here that I already have MySQL Server installed, I am using MySQL browser and I have connected to the database. I have the server running. I have opened services and I can see MySQL Service already running. That means I already have MySQL Server installed. So we'll begin with the installation of XAMPP. So the installation is pretty straightforward. We just have to double click and run the installer, and it will ask you to set the location where you want to install, and you just have to follow the instructions on the screen. There's nothing much complicated here. This is the first screen. Just click next, and here I will choose the services. I will only keep Apache and MySQL service, and I don't need Perl, so I'll just uncheck that. I just need to run Apache and MySQL database. By the way, XAMPP comes with a package of this platforms. Okay, so this is where you choose the directory where you want to install. So the default directory is C drive, and there will be a folder by the name XAMPP. So the installation is pretty straightforward. You just have to follow the instructions on the screen and complete the installation. XAMPP is currently installing the files. It will take some time to complete the installation, so let's wait. So the XAMPP installation has completed, and when we launch the control panel, we are greeted with this message on the screen, which we will resolve one by one. And this is the directory where it is installed, C drive XAMPP. This is the default location. Next, we'll see how to change the Apache port and MySQL port, because we already have IIS installed and also MySQL Server installed, so we need to change the ports. Now, if you already have a web server such as IIS installed and MySQL Server already installed, then you would need to change some ports for XAMPP so that there is no conflict. As you can see here, we have some MySQL Server error. Because MySQL Server is already installed. As you can see here, the MySQL service is already running from the previous MySQL Server installation. So when we try to start the XAMPP control panel, then we get this error, and if I try to start Apache, it is also telling me that the port is not free. So since port 80 is already in use by the IIS server, and port 3306 for MySQL is also already engaged, we need to change the port numbers for the Apache service and MySQL service for XAMPP. So let's first change the Apache port. Click on config and click on http-conf configuration file, and the file should open in the notepad. So here you need to look for port 80 and change it to some other port such as 8080. So you can use control find to find port numbers and change it to something else. In this case I'll be changing to 8080. You need to change this at 2 locations, one here and one a little down below. I'm just keeping the original configuration, so I'm commenting the line and I'm including my own. So let me just comment this, and I'll add a new one. The port should be 8080. So we have made changes at 2 different locations. You can also use control find to find port 80 and change it to some other port such as 8080. Done, just click save and we can go back and test Apache, and we are successfully able to start Apache service. Add this rule to firewall, allow access. So as we can see here, Apache service has started using the port 8080. Now one thing to remember here is that since you have changed the port for Apache, you need to specify the port 8080 when you are accessing. So this is the XAMPP homepage or dashboard, and from here we can access phyMyadmin. Let's see. So we are getting some errors. Don't worry, we'll resolve this later. The error message displayed here is related to database, so let's try to start MySQL Service. Doesn't appear to start. So now we are getting an error message here saying that the port 3306 for MySQL is already in use by the MySQL Server installed before. As you can see, the service is also running. So this is what is using the 3306, which is not free for MySQL Service from XAMPP. So we need to change the port for the MySQL Service in XAMPP. So to change the MySQL port, we need to edit the my.ini file. Just click on config, click on my.ini, and the configuration file should open in a notepad. Here in this file also you need to change the port for MySQL at 2 different locations, one under client and one under mysqld. So just look up for the port number. The default port number for MySQL is 3306, which is already taken by the MySQL server installed on the computer before XAMPP was installed. So you just need to find the port number 3306 and change it to something else. I'm using 3307 in this case. There's one more place we can change some settings. Click on config at the home page and click on services and port. Then you can change the port number here from the default numbers to whatever you have set in the configuration files. For example, for Apache we will set it to 8080, and for HTTPS I'll just keep it 444. Then for MySQL also we need to do some changes. We will keep a separate name for this because we already have a service running by the name MySQL, which is from the MySQL server. So to distinguish, I will just rename this to MySQL_XAMPP, and the other services are not used, so I'll just leave it as it is. But for MySQL, I will change the port to 8080. I have some error here which I'll try to figure out. It's basically not allowing me to save the changes, so I guess I'll have to start the XAMPP Control Panel as an administrator. To start the XAMPP Control Panel as an administrator, you can right click on the XAMPP Control Panel shortcut on your desktop and run as an administrator, or you can go to the C drive XAMPP directory and find this control and then start as administrator. Now there's one thing that we can do is to let the MySQL service from XAMPP also run as a service so that it appears in the services. Right now, if we look at the services, the default MySQL Server service is running. I mean, it is listed in the services, but the XAMPP MySQL service is not listed. So we can just tick on the check mark and it will install the service, and we should be able to see the MySQL Server service from XAMPP also visible in the services. As you can see here, when I refresh, the MySQL service from XAMPP is also now visible in the services. So this way we can see which service is running, which is not. We will redo the configuration here. You can click on the config in the home page and click on services and ports, and then you can change the ports from here, just like we've done in the configuration files. So basically this will tell the XAMPP control panel to open Apache using the port 8080. So this time we are successfully able to save the configuration after running as administrator. Now let's try to start the MySQL service, and we have this firewall prompt. We need to allow access. So the MySQL service has started using the port 3307, and let's click on Apache start. Let's see. So Apache has also started successfully using the port 8080. So the services are running fine. Let's try to browse the XAMPP dashboard. That is fine. And when we click on phyMyadmin, we have an error related to MySQL server. So let's try to figure this out, how to resolve this. As you can see, we can access the Apache localhost dashboard just fine, but when we go to phyMyadmin, we get an error like this, which is something related to MySQL. I guess there's some problem with the settings. So in order to resolve this, since we already have MySQL service installed previously, edit this file, config file, open in a Notepad++, and we need to change some settings related to MySQL connection here. So I'll just copy this and paste it down below so that I will keep the original settings as well. I'll just comment out the original settings, and let me just write here original settings for identification, and I will make the changes down below, modified. So here we need to change the authentication type to cookie instead of config. Okay, so just replace that with cookie, and I will be setting a root password. So let me just type root password, and allow no password is right now to true. Save the settings and let's see. From the control panel, I'll click on admin, or I'll just go and refresh phyMyadmin, and I can see the login screen now at least. So when I put root, it lets me log in. So even though I'm successfully able to log in, I need to still check whether phyMyadmin is connecting to the SQL database from XAMPP or from the MySQL Server 5.5. So what I've seen is that if we have MySQL Server installed, and on top of that, if we have installed XAMPP, then the MySQL, when we use phyMyadmin, then the database which the phyMyadmin connects to is not this database but this database. So the data gets stored in the program data instead of the MySQL provided by XAMPP. So I'll show you the issue. Let me first start the services. So the services are started, as you can see. Now I'll go to admin and I will access phyMyadmin, and I am able to log in just fine, right? Now this is from XAMPP. Now let me also try to open my SQL browser. By the way, both the services are running. This is the default MySQL service which is running, and this is the MySQL service from XAMPP. And by the way, this is phyMyadmin. Let me open my SQL browser, and this is actually connecting to my regular SQL server. Okay, so ideally, let's keep this window enlarged. Ideally speaking, if I create a new database from phyMyadmin, it should not be visible in my SQL server because those are supposed to be different. Let me create a new database. Let me just call it XXXX, okay? And I will create, right? So the database is created here. I can see it. Now if I go to my MySQL browser, which is actually meant for my SQL server, not the XAMPP SQL, if I refresh this, I can see the new database created from my phyMyadmin. Both are the same. And if I browse my directory inside XAMPP MySQL data, I don't see the XXX database which I just created. But if I go to C drive and program data, MySQL Server data, I can see the database here. So that means somehow phyMyadmin is connecting to my original MySQL server instead of the MySQL which is provided by XAMPP. So this is not, if you want to use the existing MySQL server from XAMPP, then this is not an issue, but I would like to keep it separate. So how to do that? Okay, so let me stop the services. So in order to configure XAMPP to use its own MySQL server database instead of the original MySQL server database, then I need to do something else. So for that, I need to go to configuration for Apache. So I'll go to phyMyadmin config inc.php, open this file. Okay, by the way, let me show you from, okay, let's browse the directory directly. C drive, XAMPP. Here we need to look for phyMyadmin, and if you scroll down, you will be able to see config inc php. Let's open in Notepad++. Okay, so here we need to add one more configuration so that phyMyadmin opens MySQL for provided by XAMPP instead of opening the original. So we need to tell phyMyadmin also to use that port. So we need to add one line of code, which is this. Okay, that's all. So we are adding this new line here under authentication and type info. I'm going to save this and let me just minimize this. Now let's see what happens. Okay, I will start the services. Let me close this window and I'll just keep it open. Let me start the services. Okay, so MySQL started, port 3307, Apache started. Okay, so now let me go to phyMyadmin. page, root login. I'm getting access denied for user localhost password using password equals to yes. So I have to revisit my config file here. So here allow no password is true. So I will change this. I will remove the password and log in as it is. And it lets me log in, right? So that means I'm connected to the MySQL server from XAMPP. Now, as you can see, the XXX database which I just created before is not visible here. So that means this and this are two different database systems. Now let me create a new database here and let's see what happens. Databases, let me create create. So I have created a new database called YYYY using my phyMyadmin, and let's see whether this database is now visible in the original MySQL Server database. So I'll just refresh, and as you can see, the YYY database is not visible here. So that means we are now accessing the right database. And if I drop this database from here and I refresh the page here, it doesn't come here. If I drop this database here, now as you can see the port, okay, in the configuration file, if you look, we have specified a host here, right, localhost, and the port is specified here. So in phyMyadmin also we can see that the server is using the port 3307, which is the correct port set in our INI file, right? So that we need to specify in the config.ini.php for the phyMyadmin file under the phyMyadmin folder. Okay, so what I'm trying to do now is I have a YYY database created here. I'll just drop this. Okay. This is the right configuration now. Since we have MySQL Server also running and the XAMPP also running, and we want XAMPP also to use its own database, then we need to set this line. We need to specify the port in the phyMyadmin config file. Okay. So in this video we covered how to install XAMPP on Windows, change the Apache and MySQL ports, configuration of XAMPP Control Panel to open phyMyadmin with the right ports, enable MySQL as a service. We have also fixed XAMPP to use its own MySQL database instead of the database from MySQL Server 5.5, which is previously installed on the system. So these are all the things that we have covered. Hope the video is helpful to you. Please like and share and subscribe. Thank you so much.